Hello, I'm AnimatorEdward, and I just finished this diving board piece, and I want to go through some of the previous versions and show you how I got it to this final version, which I'm going to show you now. So as you can tell, I'm going for a cartoony piece, and that was something which I knew I wanted to do from the beginning. Because if we watch this, look, already we're having problems. I should be showing you my planning drawings right now. Why am I not showing you my planning drawings? The answer is because there is none. If I had done some proper planning in the beginning, I would have got into a better position faster. So here you can tell that there's no time to introduce yourself to the character. There's only one helix going up. I thought of this motion here as a shape. This pose here at the top, not push, not convincing. There's a few good poses, like this one's okay, but everything else is kind of meh. This pose here has a little angular jar right at the knee. This pose is ambiguous, it could be facing either way. And this pose here gave me lots of trouble. This pose was ruining the entire rhythm of the piece. And I wanted to hold on to it for the longest time. I was saying, oh, I want the character to stand and anticipate diving into the water and just be so happy with what she's doing, but ultimately it was ruining the whole purpose of the piece. So let's talk about the purpose of the piece. I knew that I wanted a cartoony piece, and when I handed this particular animation to two different animators, one of them said that I should slow down the climbing up the ladder and show the weight, show every single grab and foot placement and hanging and swinging. And that is fantastic advice. Being able to show proper weight in animation is absolutely necessary. And I was able to get some weight later on, but this piece, the purpose behind it was cartoony. I took that advice and I applied it earlier where I have you introduce yourself to the character for a little while. And the second animator I showed it to said, make it faster and have two helixes going around the ladder. And that's the first piece of advice that really made this, this animation go in the right direction. All right. The posing for the swimming turned out well. I swam for 8 years, so I do know what swimming looks like. All right, let's go to the next piece here. Alright, so, great. We have an awkward pose there. That timing is awful. It's kind of painful to look at. There's a few interesting things here and there, like the anticipation for the dive is good, and the swimming turned out quite well. And overall, the path of action of the COG is okay. It needs work, but it's okay. Like for example, there's no arc into the anticipation. That needed to change for the next version. The body is not reacting properly. It's kind of weirdly leading, going at the same time. No, it just didn't turn out well. And these poses here are angular, as you can tell. They right at the hip, they just turn around. That's no good. And this pose, as I mentioned before, has no appeal to it. But the COG motion is there. It just needs a lot more work. And that's the reason why the animation looks okay. It's because of the COG. But the timing is really bad. Even though the motion is okay, the timing is awful. I met an animation teacher last week, and he said that I needed to speed this motion 150%, hold this for a second, speed this 140%, and speed the kick of the leg, and most importantly, get rid of this weird double bounce. And that, once I got rid of that, the whole piece started working well together. Let's go to the next version here. And as you can tell from all these drawings, he was willing to give some more advice. But let's turn those off for now. So, right off the bat, I got rid of the awkward pose and replaced it with another awkward pose. That pose is, well, it's still bad, actually. Never mind. I thought this was... Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. All right. And most importantly, I got rid of that pose there, and the rhythm started working out well. Before I got rid of that pose, it was start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, and had this same rhythm as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Very boring. But as soon as I got rid of it, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, and it had this drive with the timing that added a lot of appeal to the shot. I want to go back to the previous version and mention the most important change in the timing, and that is with the COG, like the her being knocked down when she reaches the top. There's just no appeal there. There's no hang time to sell the idea, and everyone I showed it to said, you need to fix that, man. You need to fix it. And so I did. But there is still more to do. The character is just being translated on. It should be leading with the leg. This arm pose is awkward. The anticipation needs to be pushed. As I mentioned before, if I had done proper planning and I actually drawn out my poses, I wouldn't be on version 3 still needing to fix poses in such a major way. Even ahead here, this pose here needs to be pushed. And this pose here needs to be fixed as well. There needs to be proper interaction with the spine and the COG. That's kind of popping. That's kind of not nice. That needed to be fixed. And all of these little angular poses here all needed to be fixed. Oh, I accidentally dragged that drawing. Not a big deal. Good. And all of these poses need to be pushed for more appeal. But the timing was there. Getting these smear frames and getting these properly shaped poses, the only reason they work is because I have a good COG motion with proper timing. And it has some rhythm, so it's actually worthwhile to animate. And also, same applies for the dive. Shape the body so that it has more direction and more purpose in the posing. I wanted to mention briefly here about the symmetrical poses. I know from my diving classes that TYI is how you, an easy way to remember the proper poses to do a classic dive from the end of the board. But symmetrical poses have a tendency to be symmetrical and boring. So how do I make the motion appealing? Notice here that the left arm leads and the right arm follows. And then here the right arm leads and the left arm follows. And it's just a frame later. It's just very subtle difference. But that gives asymmetrical timing to these symmetrical poses and makes it actually interesting to watch. Same thing here with the legs in the breaststroke. The left leg is leading, the right leg is following. Also, there's a really neat idea with a breakdown here where the breakdown is pushing out. It's like an overshoot before reaching up. Most of the time I do breakdowns that go in and then out. So having this idea of doing a breakdown going out and then in, I thought that was quite clever and I was happy to incorporate it. Let's see. Yep. And I also added some smear frames there, but we'll get to that later. Also, another reoccurring theme in this set was getting proper drag. Like the drag needed to be here, and the drag needed to be here in the arms. And also, as you can tell, there's some stacked up poses, stacked up arm here. Get that clear, get that in the silhouette. Make those poses clear so that they're interesting to look at. Let's go to the next version. Alright, so this is the version that things actually started to come together in a nice way. There's a few problems here and there, but it's okay. It's not a bad piece of animation. Now, any appeal that you think there is in the shot, it's because of the timing I fixed in the previous version. Getting these nice curving poses where I duplicate geometry to get this swath of color flowing through the piece in a double helix around the ladder. Without the timing, it's meaningless. It's just not there. Let's turn off that. So I pushed that pose. I put a little head anticipation. I saw that in an animation reel once, and I really liked it. I got the smear frames working well together, and there's actually some appeal with the timing. Still more to be done, but went ahead and did it anyhow. Got the proper kick there. Also, just as a brief mention, I did eventually get around to posing this so that the character was obviously looking forward. And there's some smear frames here that I did that further exaggerated the left arm leading. I didn't really change those ones too much. And I posed the character in a more of an arc. And I also stretched out the character twice as long as she normally is for this frame, this one frame right here. That added a lot to the animation to give it a spark to it, give a little spark of life. So that's all good. So what are the problems with this piece of animation? Well, let's talk about the things that are working well. The timing is working well. The smears, they're pretty much all there. All that remained was some polished things, some things you might miss on the first time around. Now this one I see every time. Finger comes out. Who cares? All right. The knee pops there. That hand remained, like the hand behind, remains stuck to the body, kind of disappears, and it's deciding whether it or not it wants to be part of the frame. That needed to be fixed. The head does this triangular popping motion going round and around. There's no overlap in the foot. That needs to be added. Notice here, this is a good thing by the way, I got the S-curve in the body. That was vital to making this motion work well. The leg is going forward, then suddenly decides to go straight down for some reason, and then immediately pops backwards, and then doesn't even stretch properly as a good goodbye. Goodness gracious. The head sticks here for a frame. That's no good. That antic is wonderful. And the COG sticks here for a frame. And I posed out the body so that it has this proper curve going through it and not this jarring angle change right at the knee. And as you can tell here, I'm going to turn off the annotations briefly. There's two little motions in the arm when it goes down, for the left arm, to point it out more precisely. And as you can see with this drawing here, the red line is what it currently is, where it moves in 2 steps, and what I want it to be is this black line, where it moves in 1 tempo, 1 motion between 2 stillnesses, 1 phrase. So that eventually led to the final here. So, as I mentioned before, the most important thing I learned while doing this animation was I needed to do a lot more planning. And as you can tell, I've already drawn over this frame. You know my opinion on this frame. I need to delete this frame as soon as possible. Okay, let's talk about something important. The planning I needed to do a lot earlier. And one of the things I was happy with this shot was the amount of networking I did. I was very happy talking to a lot of other animators and learning how to see with their eyes, being able to figure it out. In the interest of keeping it short and sweet, I'm going to end my little chat right here, but I'll leave you something to think about. As I was mentioning, being able to see is the most important, in my humble opinion, the most important idea for being a good animator. If you can't see it, you can't animate it. And being able to look at other people's animations like this, like as I mentioned, I looked at a demo reel and I saw this cool head anticipation on some parkour, and I'm like, I need that. From very small things, being able to look at other people's work and see that and be able to learn from it, to even bigger things like this idea of the S-curve in the body and proper timing. That's why you always need to be learning. You need to be doing animation and learning animation, so you could constantly be learning how to see. And if you're able to see it, you're able to animate it. Thank you very much for your time and attention. That is your most valuable resource in the entire world, and I hope you got what you wanted.